Dear learners, welcome to the course Disaster Management Strategies. As you know, Model 4 consists of two units. One of these is Unit 8 entitled Disaster Management. Today we will explore this unit together. I am excited to have you with me on this journey. Let's get started. Dear learners, disasters have been an integral part of human history, affecting communities worldwide with devastating consequences. Whether it is the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami that struck 14 countries, the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami, the 2010 Haiti earthquake, the 2001 Gujarat earthquake, the 2023 Turkey Syria earthquakes, or the recurring floods in Pakistan and cyclones in the Philippines, the impacts transcend borders and remind us of our shared vulnerability. This unit introduces the foundational concept of disaster management, explores traditional and indigenous coping practices from around the world with special reference to India, and highlights key lessons learned from the major past disasters. By understanding these basics, learners will appreciate how the field has evolved from a purely reactive, relief-centered approach to a more integrated, proactive, and resilience-focused system. Disaster management is not just about responding to emergencies. It is a holistic discipline that aims to minimize risk and build resilient communities and nations. The subsequent unit will explore deeply into crisis management and risk management. So this unit focuses primarily on conceptual foundations and historical evolutions, touching only lightly on these specialized areas where necessary. We warmly welcome learners to this journey of understanding and preparedness. Let us start with the concept of disaster management. Disaster management encompasses the systematic organizations, planning, and applications of strategies designed to prepare for, respond to, and recover from disaster. As a multidisciplinary field, it involves government bodies, non-governmental organizations, communities, and international entities, all working collaboratively with the primary goal of reducing adverse impact on lives, property, and the environment while building long-term resilience. Resilience in this context refers to the capacity of individuals, communities, societies, and systems to anticipate, absorb, adapt to, and recover from the efforts of hazardous events in a timely and efficient manner, including through preserving and restoring essential basic structures and functions. This holistic approach marks a significant evolution from traditional relief-focused effort to a proactive, integrated framework that addresses vulnerabilities at every stage of disaster cycle. In essence, disaster management shifts the focus from mere reaction to a comprehensive cycle that addresses vulnerabilities before, during, and after a disaster. It integrates scientific knowledge, policy frameworks, and community participation to mitigate losses. Now we will discuss the disaster management in the context of sustainable development. Disaster management is fundamentally an effort to foster development by reducing the toll of disaster, including loss of lives, economic damage, and setbacks to progress. Disasters can erase years of development gains, particularly in vulnerable communities, by destroying infrastructure, livelihoods, and ecosystems. At its core, development should be disaster resilient or disaster friendly. This means that planning, policies, and investment must proactively incorporate disaster risk reductions to ensure long-term sustainability. This approach emphasizes in frameworks like the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reductions 2015 to 2030 and the UN Sustainable Development Goal integrates DRR, that is disaster risk reductions, into all stages of development. Now start with the first point, that is prevention and mitigations. These involve proactively reducing risks by building resilient infrastructure, enforcing land use planning to avoid setting in hazard-prone areas, and protecting natural ecosystem that act as buffer against disasters. Next is preparedness. The phase focuses on getting ready in advance through measures like early warning system, public education on risks, and community training to ensure effective responses. Next is response and recovery. During and after a disaster, this includes efficient delivery of aid and humanitarian assistance, followed by building back better reconstructions in ways that improve resilience and reduce future vulnerabilities. By making development disaster resilience, societies minimize risk, protect the vulnerable, and achieve the sustainable progress without repeated cycles of loss and rebuilding. This linkage ensures that growth is equitable, environmentally sound, and enduring. Our next concept of discussion is traditional and indigenous disaster management practices. Traditional disaster management refers to the pre-modern, indigenous, and community-driven approaches that societies have relied upon for centuries to cope with recurring natural hazards. These practices were deeply embedded in local culture, religion, folklore, and ecological knowledge, and were passed down through oral traditions, rituals, and practical experience, rather than written manuals or formal institutions. Unlike modern scientific approaches, traditional methods were predominantly reactive and community-centric, with little emphasis on long-term prevention or risk reductions. They viewed humans as part of nature rather than separate from or superior to it, often interpreting disaster as part of a natural or cosmic cycle. Folklore such as oral stories, myths, legends, and song passed down generations encode lessons from past disasters. They teach recognitions of natural warning, signs, and safe actions. Ancient village panchayats and religious institutions played an important role during famines and flood by coordinating the sharing of grains from community granaries, while temple and mosques provide food and shelter. The British era famine codes of the late 19th century were partly inspired by these indigenous relief systems. Religious institutions and places of worship, such as temples, mosques, churches, and other faith centers, often serve as trusted community hubs with significant resources. They play a vital role in disaster response and recovery by providing immediate shelter, food, and material aid, offering emotional and spiritual support through rituals, prayers, and counseling to aid trauma recovery and build resilience. Mobilizing volunteers and existing networks for relief efforts and long-term rebuilding and promoting ethical values and behaviors that foster community solidarity and mutual help. These elements foster community resilience, cultural continuity, and inclusive disaster risk reductions. Integrating them with modern science creates stronger and more sustainable disaster management. Now, we will discuss some of the examples of traditional and indigenous disaster management practices. Indigenous tribes of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands of India. The tribes of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, such as the Onge, Jarwa, and the Great Andamanis, possess deep ancestral knowledge of their fragile island ecosystem. They interpret subtle environmental signals such as the sudden receding of the sea, unusual animals' behavior, the sudden silence of birds, and changes in wind pattern as warnings of impending danger. This knowledge, transmitted through oral legends and myths, prompted instinctive flight to higher ground. During the catastrophic 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, which devastated coastal settlements across the islands, killing thousands and displacing many more, these particularly vulnerable tribal groups suffered virtually no casualties. Anthropologists and government reports confirm that not a single death was recorded among the more isolated groups, such as the Jarwa, Ong and Great Andamanis, despite the wave inundating low-lying areas. In contrast, communities that had adopted modern ways of life and settlers on the island suffered heavy losses. This amazing survival story shows the incredible value of indigenous knowledge about nature. These tribes have developed this deep understanding over thousands of years, allowing them to recognize and respond to nature's warning sign even without modern tools like tsunami warning systems. Next, we will consider Simeulue Island of Indonesia. Simeulue Island lies off the west coast of Sumatra in Aceh province, Indonesia. It's a beautiful remote place with lush tropical landscape, stunning beaches, and a population of around 90,000 people who mostly live in coastal villages and rely on fishing and farming. The people of Simeulue speak local language like Debayan, and they have a strong traditions of passing down stories, song, and poems through generation, often as lullabies, bedtime tales, or community performance called Nandong. In the local Debayan language, the word smoke means tsunami. This word became tied to a life-saving oral traditions after a devastating tsunami hit the island on January 4, 1907. Following a powerful earthquake, that event killed hundreds and destroyed many villages. Survivors turned their grief into a promise. They created stories, poems, and songs about smoke to warn future generations. The key message was simple and urgent. If you feel a big earthquake and see the sea recede, run immediately to high ground on the hills. Do not wait or go to the beach. This knowledge was shared by parents, grandparents, and teachers. It became part of everyday culture, even taught in schools. In December 26, 2004, the massive Indian Ocean earthquake of magnitude 9.3 struck just off Simeulue coast, making it one of the closest places to the epicenter. The tsunami waves reached up to 10 to 15 meters high in some spots, destroying coastal homes and villages. But when the ground shook violently that morning, people remembered smoke. As soon as they saw the water pulling back, elders and children alike shouted, "Smoke, smoke," and everyone fled afield. Families grabbed what they could and ran to the higher ground. As a result of that, out of about 78,000 to 80,000 residents, only 3 to 7 people died. Thousands of lives were saved by the ancestral wisdom alone. No modern tsunami warning system existed at that time. In stark contrast, nearby mainland suffered over 130,000 deaths. Today, the smoke story is still alive, now in modern songs, school lessons, and even baby names. It's recognized worldwide as a powerful example of indigenous knowledge saving lives. Such examples reflect how living in harmony with nature's warning can protect entire communities without any high-tech alerts. Traditional approaches were contextually more appropriate for the socio-economic and environmental conditions of pre-industrial societies because of the following reasons. First, low population density and limited urbanizations. Hazards affected smaller, scattered communities, making localized response sufficient. Next, stable and predictable hazards pattern. Climate was relatively stable compared to today. Communities had centuries to observe recurring cycles. For example, seasonal floods known as cyclone seasons. Next, agrarian and subsistence economies. Lifestyles were closely tied to local ecosystem, fostering deep ecological knowledge. Next is strong social cohesion. Extended families, clans, and village structure ensured mutual aid without needing formal government interventions. Next is low technological intervention in nature. Minimal deforestations, dam building, or coastal reclamation meant natural buffers, forest, mangroves, and wetlands remain intact. Oral knowledge suited slow changing environments. Generation could refine observations without rapid external disruptions. In such context, these methods were highly efficient, sustainable, and cost-free, often achieving what we now call living with risk or coexistence with nature. Now we will discuss the limitations of the traditional knowledge in the modern context with respect to disaster management. While remarkably resilient for their era, traditional methods face severe constraint today because of the following reasons. First, rapid environmental change. Climate change has altered hazard frequency, intensity, and predictability. For example, unseasonal flood, stronger cyclones, rendering centuries-old science unreliable. Next is urbanization and population growth. Megacities and dense coastal settlements mean a single event can affect millions, far beyond the scale traditional community responses can handle. Next is loss of indigenous knowledge. Migrations, modernizations, and formal educations have eroded oral traditions, especially among younger generations. Next is large-scale infrastructure and economic complexity. Dams, highways, industries, and global supply chains introduce new vulnerabilities that local knowledge cannot address alone. Next one is lack of scalability and coordinations. Traditional systems were hyper-local. They cannot coordinate across states or countries during transboundary disasters. Next one is absence of early warning technology. Reliance on natural signs provide only minutes or hours of warning, insufficient for evacuating. Now we will discuss whether integrating traditional wisdom with modern science is a myth or reality. Contemporary disaster management frameworks, including the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 and India's National Disaster Management Plan, explicitly call for integrating indigenous and traditional knowledge with scientific approaches. Let us put here some example of successful integration of traditional wisdom with modern science. First, Odisha's community-based cyclone warning dissemination uses women's self-help group alongside satellite forecast. Second one is restoration of mangroves in Tamil Nadu and Sundarbans combines traditional reverence for coastal forest with scientific planting techniques. Next, revival of traditional elevated housing designs in modern flood-prone areas of Assam and Bihar using treated bamboo and concrete. Traditional methods were brilliantly adapted to their era. Today, their core principles such as community ownership, ecological harmony, and local relevance remain invaluable when integrated with modern tools like early warning system, GIS mapping, and resilient infrastructure. This blend represents the best of both worlds, time-tested indigenous wisdom combined with cutting-edge science to create truly resilient societies. Now, we are in a position to discuss important lessons learned from the past notable disasters. Disasters throughout history have significantly shaped the evolution of disaster management practices. Notable cases include Bhopal gas tragedy of 1984 India. The Bhopal gas tragedy of 1984 occurred due to a leak of methyl isocyanate, which is known as MIC, from a Union Cabinet pesticide plant in Bhopal, India, killing thousands immediately and affecting over 500,000 people with long-term health issues. It underscored the risk of human-induced disasters, leading to stringent industrial safety regulations, community right to no loss, emergency preparedness plans, and the enactment of the Environmental Protection Act 1986. Next, we will consider is Gujarat earthquake of 2001. The Gujarat earthquake 2001 of magnitude 7.7 claimed over 20,000 lives. It highlighted the critical need for seismic zoning, building retrofitting, and rapid response mechanisms, and prompted reforms that led to the establishment of the National Disaster Management Authority, which is known as NDMA, in 2005, with a greater emphasis on disaster mitigations. Next, we will consider the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. This event affected multiple countries, including India, causing over 230,000 deaths worldwide. Key outcomes include the development of early warning system, restoration of coastal mangroves as natural barriers, and enhanced international cooperations. Next, Hurricane Katrina of 2005 USA. It revealed failures in response, coordinations, and evacuations, particularly for vulnerable populations. Lessons focused on integrating social equity into planning and building resilient infrastructures. Next is Fukushima nuclear disaster 2011 of Japan. It triggered by an earthquake and tsunami. It emphasizes multi-hazard planning, redundancy in safety system, and effective public communications during crisis. From these and other disasters, several comprehensive lessons have emerged, driving a paradigm shift in disaster management from a primarily reactive, relief-centric approach to a proactive, risk reductions focused framework. First, shift from reactive to proactive, moving beyond immediate relief to preventive mitigations, such as investing in early warning system, which significantly reduces casualties. Next, integration of traditional and modern knowledge, combining indigenous practice with scientific tools like GIS mapping for more effective strategies. Next one is community involvement. Bottom-up participation ensures plans are relevant, sustainable, and effective, as top-down approaches often fail. Multi-stakeholders coordinations, collaborating among government, NGOs, and the private sector is essential, exemplified by the Indian National Disaster Response Force, India's National Disaster Response Force, which is known as NDRF. Next one is building resilience. Post-disaster recovery should build back better by incorporating improved designs to minimize future risk. Learning from failures, conducting systematic post-disaster reviews and after-actions reports to refine strategies. Last one is addressing vulnerabilities, prioritizing marginalized group to prevent disproportionate impacts and promoting social equity. Dear learners, disaster management has evolved significantly over the years, shaped by the painful lessons drawn from devastating events across the globe. In the past, responses to calamities were largely reactive, focusing mainly on relief and recovery rather than prevention and preparedness. This traditional approach often proved insufficient, leading to greater loss of life and property. Prior to modern reforms, many disaster management systems exhibited critical gaps, including absence of scientific assessment, monitoring, and hazard risk vulnerability mapping, inadequate early warning and preparedness systems, lack of a technological regimes for safe building practices, poor community awareness and preparedness, environmental degradation that exacerbated disasters, development projects that inadvertently created new risk, primitive research and rescue capabilities, weak coordination, communication strategies and system, and lastly, inadequate relief management. In conclusion, we can say Historically, disaster management in India and globally relied on ad hoc reactive measures, often unprofessional and lacking in skill, focusing primarily on post-event relief rather than structured evidence-based prevention and preparedness. This approach frequently amplified losses due to inadequate scientific assessment, hazard risk vulnerability mapping, early warning systems, building codes, community engagement, and coordinated responses. The hard-earned lessons from the past disasters have catalyzed a profound paradigm shift towards proactive, holistic risk educations. Globally, this is embodied in the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 13, adopted by the United Nations, which outlines 4 priorities for actions. First, understanding disaster risks. Second, strengthening disaster risk governance to manage risk. Third, investing in disaster risk reductions for resilience. And last one is enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response and to build back better in recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstructions. In India, these lessons directly informed the Disaster Management Act 2005, while established the National Disaster Management Authority, headed by the Prime Ministers, as the apex body for policymaking, planning, and coordinations. The Act marked a transition to comprehensive risk management, creating institutional mechanism at national, state, and district level, and emphasizing mitigations, preparedness, and capacity building. Recent developments, including amendments in 2024-25, have further clarified roles, strengthened urban disaster authorities, and enhanced statutory bodies for crisis management. While crisis management addresses immediate response and risk management involves quantifying and mitigating threats, the foundational lessons from historical disasters underpin the entire spectrum, ensuring sustainable, resilient development in an era of increasing climate-related hazards. With this, we conclude today's discussion. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to continuing our journey in the next sessions. Happy learning.